Hello everyone! You know what time of year it is? It's time for my extremely late PAX South indie game coverage. As is tradition, of course. Yeah, sorry I've been out for a while, but I saw a lot of really good games at PAX South and I want to share them with you. So, let's get right into it. The first game I saw there was a game called Negative World. This is a very traditional platformer, but it has a neat twist where you have a limited number of jumps. It will count you down as you jump, and platforms will disappear and reappear based on how many jumps you have left. So there's some math going on here. The whole thing is like a big logic puzzle. Like if a platform has a division symbol and a number, that means that your remaining jumps need to be a factor of that number. If they're not, you fall right through the platform. So you always gotta think like 2 steps ahead. I really like that. The developer told me that his graphics are very Atari inspired, but it actually reminded me more of like early Apple stuff. You know, like those edutainment games you used to play in school? Especially given the subject matter, it really reminded me of that. But this developer was very young. It's probably before his time. This is exactly what I like to see at the PAX Rising area. It's a simple indie game that's doing something a little different. This game is made by one developer, it's his first solo effort, and he made a very strong showing here. The game will be releasing on Steam, and I look forward to what he brings us in the future. Next, I took a look at Boyfriend Dungeon. I have been looking forward to this game for so long. It's from Kitfox Games, who we've seen before. They made games like Moon Hunters and Shrouded Isle. This game is an action RPG and it has some unique modern elements. It does have the usual RPG elements like a skill tree system with upgrades and abilities based on how your relationship goes with your weapons. Oh wait, I didn't tell you that? Yeah, it also combines like dating sim elements in there, and you date your weapons, like they're possessed by a spirit. And if you look closely at their first teaser trailer, apparently one of your boyfriends can be a cat. There's other neat little details as well, like how you check text messages in order to communicate. Going on a date is their version of going into a dungeon. Boba drinks give you health. What I really like about the games from Kitfox is that they're like composites of all their ideas that work, and you could really see in their gameplay. I noticed them reusing elements that worked in their previous games. That's really neat to see a studio adapt and grow like that. Long story short, I can't wait to own this game. Next, I moved on to Dicey Dungeons. This is a game that I had actually booked a media appointment to see, and I gotta be real with you and confess something here. I had no interest in this game. The only reason I agreed to this media appointment is because I wanted to meet the developer. That's because he's the creator of VVVVVV, which in my opinion, I would put it squarely in the top 10 indie games ever made, maybe even the top 5. I was so happy to meet this developer, and after I was done groveling, I played his game, and it's actually really good. It's a roguelike turn-based RPG. You play as a dice, and it's a dice rolling game. Each dice roll is an attack. The dice obviously act as hit points for your attacks. It's very intuitive, it has some really nice features like a limited ability to re-roll your dice, and that really helps to ease off the frustration with this game. It really takes a skilled developer to think of adding something like that, and it makes the game a lot more strategy-based rather than relying on a game of chance. I noticed that the sound was really good, and he tells me that the audio was designed by the same guy behind Super Hexagon. He also tells me that this game started at a game jam, and that's really neat. You don't usually see a game like that get to this stage. He's gonna release it sometime in 2019, it will release on Steam, but he's also looking to release it on mobile because it's a really good form factor for this type of game, and I agree with that. And the game's current build is available right now on itch.io. Next, we have NELO. This game is on Steam Early Access, and it was successfully funded on Kickstarter years ago. The gameplay really reminds me of Vanquish, and the team has no problem with that. They say it's inspired by Platinum games in general. They're very open about it. Imitation is the best form of flattery. This is a bullet hell, shoot 'em up, top-down shooter type of thing. It all takes place in the third person. The top-down view gives you a better situational awareness, and the third-person view gives you more verticality control. And you're able to switch on the fly. These are not pre-scripted battles. You'll also notice that there are 4 little exterior guns, kind of like little wingmen in a shooter. So again, you see it has a lot of shoot 'em up elements. There are 2 different characters you can play as, and there are 2 modes, Campaign and Endurance, which is pretty self-explanatory. Endurance is like a horde mode, boss rush type of thing. The game is running on Unreal 4, and they say it's an alpha build, but I gotta tell you, this looks very finished for being an alpha build. It's been in development for 5 years. The game is horribly overdue. It's way past the delivery estimate in the Kickstarter. But like I said, to me it looks almost ready, and I expect the backers to be very satisfied with this game. Moving on to Gato Roboto. This is another game that I have been dying to play ever since it was announced. I almost screamed when I saw that there was a playable build here at PAX South. I don't know how many times I watched the announcement trailer. This game is one of my most wanted. Which only makes it even more sad that this game is such a disappointment. Don't get me wrong, this game has a lot going for it. The aesthetics are very charming. The graphics have that simplistic Game Boy-like feel to it, which I love. And it's a Metroidvania starring a cat in a mech suit. It's got everything I want. But the problem is that the game is extremely cookie cutter. It's just so bland, there's nothing exciting about this game other than the character you play as. It feels like the charm of that character is a bigger selling point than the gameplay. They do have some good ideas here, like at certain points you need to get out of the mech so you can go into a certain area, but that feels almost like a callback to Blaster Master. It doesn't feel original. The power suit is cool, but they desperately need more variety. Like I said, the animation is excellent, but again, it feels like style over substance. It's like every step forward they take 2 steps back. I do want to give this game another chance when it comes out, but I just got a really bad first impression, and I hate saying that about this game. Now before you guys hit the comments, I feel like one of you is gonna say, "What the fuck, StopDrop&Retro? You said that first game was good, and this is like the same shit." Well, no it's not, and I'm gonna tell you the difference. Negative World took a very ordinary premise and made it interesting. This game took a very interesting premise and made it boring. I don't care how cute your game looks, if you don't have gameplay to back it up, it's not worth anyone's time. Next, I went to go see Ultra Bugs. This is from one of my favorite developers, Vlambeer, and it's a very arcadey shoot 'em up. The game starts out very familiar, but you'll notice that they add little tweaks that make it their own. For instance, when you take your finger off the trigger and then you start shooting again, it increases the difficulty. That very subtle control over the difficulty helps the player adjust to what they're comfortable with. The sweet spot is the perfect mix between survival and difficulty. You unlock new ships and they all behave differently, they all attack with different patterns. Now, there isn't a ton of depth here, I pretty much explained it all. The developer tells me that the idea was to make a quick pick up and play game. One that you could exit at any time without really caring about losing your progress. It's a time killer, it's not really something you would play for hours on end. But on a subway or waiting for an appointment, it would be perfect. And since that was their goal, I think they accomplished it. Good job. Next, we have a game we're familiar with. This is Quantum Covenant. We saw this game last year, I described it as a tech demo, and now they've got some progress to show off. They've taken that game in a very different direction, and now it's a space sporting game. You control your ship in like a Rocket League type of environment. The game is very physics heavy and very frustrating at times. And now you have a grappling hook which helps you get this ball so you could try to score points. Honestly, it's not the type of game that I play, I'm not big into Rocket League or anything, and it's very far from complete. But still, I find it interesting to follow their development. They're students doing their own student thing, and I like seeing where they take their ideas. Next, I checked out a game called Blubber Busters. This is an action platformer where you give medical care to space whales. You play as a little surgeon who goes into a whale Fantastic Voyage style, and every whale is a level with its own illness and objectives. They got really creative with these levels. I remember one whale had a malfunctioning pacemaker, and when you go into the whale you find these little creatures attacking the electrical parts, so of course you have to defeat them to fix the whale. This team has a sense of humor, I really enjoyed that. Now when you start out you choose 2 players and you can swap between them on the fly. Each one has their own unique abilities and advantages, and that helps you get over obstacles. The developer told me that the order that you take the levels changes the endings, which is inspired by Star Fox, and he also told me the game is like a mix between the Magic School Bus and Earthworm Jim. The game uses hand-drawn sprites and they look incredibly good. The art style really reminded me of Ren and Stimpy. It's developed by a team of 3, and he tells me the music was composed by the same guy who worked on Risk of Rain. Also, I saw that this game was on Kickstarter in 2016. It got 1,100 backers, but it did not reach its goal. They tell me they plan to go back to Kickstarter, and I really do wish them the best. The next game I played was Totally Reliable Delivery Service, also known as TURDS, and that's not my abbreviation, that really is what the team calls it. The game is fun, but like most physics-based games, the controls can be frustrating. It plays very similarly to Human Fall Flat, but without the teamwork. It's very clear that you are allowed to screw with people here. The most fun comes from the vehicles that you operate. I made a short list of the vehicles I tried out, let me read them to you. Golf cart, van, rocket ship, rocket car, biplane, helicopter, boat. The flying is very fun, that was actually my favorite thing to do here. But I have to say, it does get a little boring and repetitive once you start delivering packages. There's a really great sense of accomplishment after you get the first one in, and then it gives you another goal and it's like, oh, wow, okay, we have to keep doing this. It's more fun as just an open world game to screw around in, but that only has so much replayability as well. To me, this is very clearly what I would call a streamer game. It feels like it's designed to be frustrating and get on your nerves, that way your fans that watch you on Twitch can just laugh at you. And I guess that's the thing, I mean, there are games that are made for that purpose. This game could also use more environments, the physics are very floaty, and I couldn't help but think that there should be a moon level here. I mean, they already have the rocket ship, so why not? Next, I tried out Skellboy. This is the same developer as Slime Sand, we met them last year. They're a team of 3 from Germany, and this is a very adventure-type game. You play as a resurrected hero, and I really do mean resurrected. You start out as a skeleton, and you can swap out body parts with things you find along the way. You can use that to upgrade weapons and abilities. It can work as a disguise here and there. So they throw in a little bit of puzzle mechanics in there as well. As everything else you expect, there's going to be boss fights, a hub world. There's 10 weapons right now, and they're adding more. The music is NES chiptune inspired because of course it is. One of the cool things the developer told me is that it actually started off as a 2D game, and all the art was 2D sprites, and then later down the line it switched to 3D. That's a really cool story, but I hope they include like a special level in there where you could play in the original 2D style, just so we could see what that looked like. And they expect to release this game in 2019. Moving on to Outer Wilds. Not to be confused with Outer Worlds, which is unfortunate that a game that's been in development for so long has a name that's now so similar to one of the most anticipated games. Outer Wilds is an exploration game that takes place in space, very much like a point-and-click adventure. In the game, there's a meteor that will destroy the universe. I believe you need to find a way to stop it, but it doesn't give you enough time. It will destroy the universe. However, you will regenerate each time it happens, sort of like a Groundhog Day type of loop. I've been following this game for a long time. I still have the original demo on my PC, and they've made some amazing improvement here. The details in the game world are very charming. Everything in the game world looks like it was bought at an intergalactic thrift store or something. There's now more characters to interact with, the flight controls are more intuitive, everything's been turned up to 11. Compared to the original demo, it feels like a game that moved from a 90s clunky flight sim to the present day. You can tell I like this game, but somebody out there is gonna say, "What the hell, man? I thought you hated this game. It's on Fig. You told us Fig was evil." Well, this game is a good example of how I feel about Fig. I don't hate the games on Fig, I'm not biased against them. I covered Fig because I disagree with the practices of that site. I didn't feel they were being honest to the public. It was never against the devs or the games, it was only about the platform. I do hope this game is successful, I want to play the finished product, and I heard that it's going to come to Xbox Game Pass. So for those of us who have that service, we'll be able to get it free-ish. I am definitely looking forward to it. Next, we move on to A.N.N.E. This is a 2.5D platformer with some space combat mixed in between some levels. That mix of gameplay styles really reminds me of the Guardian Legend. The space combat is interesting because you don't fire a gun, instead you have like this whip grapple mechanic thing. It sounds weird, but it's easier to use than you think. This game was funded on Kickstarter for over $100,000, and currently they're also getting help from the Canada Games Fund. The game has been in development for 6 years. During that time, they restarted development from scratch when they moved to Unity. The game is 5 years late, and backers just got beta access in December. I'll hand it to them that the artwork and animation is impressive. It looks just like what they promised in their pitch. They pulled that off very well. But this game is extremely buggy. I feel bad for the backers. I didn't back this game, but I found it disappointing. In the very first space combat level, there was a problem with hit detection. I remember my ship went off screen and I should have died, but for some reason I didn't, and that even surprised the developer there. I also witnessed one player crash the game, and another player went into an area that was impossible to get out of and they had to restart the game. And I did not stay at that booth for long, this all occurred like within 15 minutes. I also understand they shipped out some of the rewards, which is strange to me because the game is far from ready. And I really wonder, is this going to be like a low-key Kickstarter failure? I mean, it didn't raise as much money as Mighty No. 9, but $100,000 is still $100,000 last time I checked. Unless they really step up their bug control, I think this is going to be a very underwhelming title. Next, I took a look at Dual Hand Disaster. This is a shoot-'em-up game that's been in development since 2014. It's a split-screen arcade shooter, and it is the strangest game I've ever played. I'm going to try to explain it as best I can, but it really is something you need to experience. The developer tells me it's kind of like playing Galaga and Pac-Man at the same time. That gives you a very watered-down idea of what's happening here. On the right side of the screen, you're controlling a ship that's picking up power-ups. That ship can take damage. And on the left side, you shoot at enemies, and that side does not take damage. The gameplay gets overwhelming very quickly. You have to watch both sides, and there's like a million things you have to keep an eye on. I hear that the players with the highest scores are able to keep one eye on one screen and one eye on the other. This game is very challenging, there's nothing else like it. The best way I could describe it is that it's basically Dwarf Fortress in shoot 'em up form. You can get a lot of score multipliers, and I hear that the highest recorded score is 35 trillion. If you're looking for something different, a unique challenge that is unlike anything else I've ever seen on Steam, then I highly recommend that you get this game. And it took me this long to realize that a dual hand disaster abbreviates to ADHD, which is very fitting. Moving on to Aqua Lungers. This game has been in development for 2 years and it's a multiplayer competitive looting game. Every stage has a boss character and the boss competes for points as well. You can also steal from other players, so you can grief each other, and that's actually pretty fun. The levels feel like a mix between high score contest, boss battle, and eventually they just descend into PvP. In the normal stages, the bosses are invincible, they can be stunned, but there are boss fight stages, and that's the only part where the boss can be killed. The game is very polished, there's a surprising level of detail here. They have different environments like sea, desert, and swamp. I was very impressed with this game, except it had one fatal flaw that would stop me from buying it. It is local multiplayer only. And I'm sorry, I know couch co-op is fun, but in today's world you can't count on having 4 friends in the same room. A multiplayer game that's local multiplayer only in this day and age is inexcusable. I could forgive it if it was releasing on Switch, and maybe that will happen someday, but from what I was told, it's Steam only for now. I just don't get that. Getting close to the end, we have Soleil. This is a surrealist adventure game. It's been in development for 4.5 years and they'll be releasing in 2019. Now this is a walking sim, I know some people take issue with that, let's just get that out of the way. But if you're not opposed to that sort of gameplay, this is actually really good. The game has that janky low poly design which I love, and the textures are very watercolor-like. When I was talking to the creator, we agreed this game has hypnotic dust physics. This game is aimed at people who like the game Journey, and I count myself among that group. There is no lose condition in this game, there's no way to die. Your goal is to explore the landscape and figure out what your character is. To do that, you collect language layers which help you understand a message. Based on what I played, it feels like you're trying to bring life back into the world with color. I don't know, maybe I got that totally wrong. The game is coming to Steam and Xbox One. And lastly, I played Grapple Force Rena. This game was a very pleasant surprise. I don't know if it's made by the same team that made Freedom Planet, but I do know that the developer is associated with them. Whatever it is, they shared the same booth. But I was unaware that this game was even in development. And while this game isn't as deep as Freedom Planet was, it's still got its own thing going. The main mechanic is a grappling hook, and I feel like we've had several games on here already that use grappling hooks. But I don't mind, I actually like that type of gameplay. And it really is just a well put together platformer. Of course it has a retro pixel art look to it. I don't know exactly which console it's trying to imitate, but to me it looks like it imitates the Game Boy Advance. This game is already out, and I look forward to completing it. So there you go, that's my whole PAX South coverage. I decided not to choose a game of the show this year. I don't know, there's different reasons why I chose that. For one, I didn't feel that there was one game that really stood above the rest this year. This PAX felt a little muted compared to the previous years. And also, I just have other stuff that I want to get to on my channel. I've got a lot of stuff that I need to catch up on. But I know I've said this since last year, but I really do want to put indie games back into my channel. And hopefully I could put some time into that this year. But that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching guys, I'll see you next time.